Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 734 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today's episode of the Juicebox Podcast is with Allie. She is the mother of a 19-year-old with type 1 diabetes who is preparing to live abroad. And while he's preparing, so is Allie. Please remember while you're listening that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you have type 1 diabetes and are a U.S. resident, or you are the caregiver of someone with type 1 and a U.S. resident, go to t1dexchange.org/juicebox to take the survey. When you complete the survey, your simple answers to simple questions about type 1 diabetes will help other people living with type 1. They'll also help you and me. t1dexchange.org/juicebox. Completely anonymous, absolutely HIPAA compliant. Only takes 10 minutes. Go answer those questions for me, please. This episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Touched by Type 1. They're an organization doing great things for people living with type 1 diabetes. And all they want is for you to find out more about them. touchedbytype1.org. You could also follow them on Facebook and Instagram. Today's show is also sponsored by InPen from Medtronic Diabetes. If you're looking for an insulin pen that does more than what you expect, you're looking for the InPen. InPentoday.com to find out more.
I'm Allie. I am a mother of a currently 19-year-old who is on a year abroad in Israel. And he was diagnosed 3.5 years ago.
19 years old, 3.5 years ago. He is not currently in the country even.
He is not in the country. He is really, really far. We're texting diabetes, different time zones, kind of not able to get texts sometimes. It's fun.
Interesting. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning. So,
the very beginning.
Yeah, how'd it go?
So, we're religious Jews. So there's a lot of like very specific holidays and things. So we had Rosh Hashanah, which is our New Year. The whole family, is together in one house, and he, was very similar. That he had a sore throat and he was throwing up. So I got him some antibiotics, and we said, okay, so we'll be home in a couple of days. We'll take you to the hospital, take you to the doctor. And he was okay. Like the first day he had lost weight, and my mom was like so excited, and she took him shopping and she got him new clothes. She was like so excited. And that summer we hadn't seen him in a long time because he was in a sports camp. And then after the sports camp, he went to a hockey camp. So it wasn't like a long, he doesn't feel good.
Right.
So, because kid got a sore throat. So he's like sitting on the couch. It was his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
It was his 16th birthday. And we got him this ice cream cake and he didn't eat it, which is not typical for him to not eat the ice cream cake. And he was just like on the couch. And then when we finally took him to the doctor, I went to work. And my husband's with the doctor. I was like, get a strep test. So he goes to the doctor and he's like, we're going to the hospital. I was like, what do you mean go to the hospital? So, so he got his diagnosis, and I was like, I definitely did not believe it. I was like, these people are idiots. They didn't even do a strep test, And then, when I came, my husband was with him the whole time. He stayed with him. And I was convinced eventually that it was.
I was convinced eventually. So
there was nobody in our family
Right.
had any kind of diabetes. And even he only had one marker. So the last time you went to endo, she's like, well, I'm not going to change your diagnosis because your markers didn't come up, but maybe there's a different marker we're not testing. Like his one marker that it took him a long time to kill his pancreas.
Okay. So, all right. So at the end of his 15th year, he's off at a couple of sports camps. He's gone for a while. You don't see him. He comes back. It's a holiday. You're around family, not at home. And he's sick. You think he's got strep, which makes sense. Your mom is on a different path. With it's a great time to buy new clothing, and then you get this diagnosis. So how long was he in the hospital? Did they ever admit him?
Yeah. So when we went to the pediatrician, he said, like, go to this hospital. We went to Hackensack instead of the local one.
Mm-hmm.
And they have a Molly Center for Diabetes, which is, pretty extensive, and it's associated with Jocelyn, and it's like a good place to go. Of course, whatever other people told us, no, you got to go to Boston, you got to go to Philly, you got to go to New York, but we were in Hackensack, pretty happy. And I was kind of picking the doctor. So every 5 minutes, a different doctor comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And there's one doctor that he was like, I could put him on the list, Javier Eisenberg. He's like cool and a guy, and he's got like, big curly hair, and he was like the head of the whole department. So I'm like, okay, that's the one. And when you call up to make the appointment, they're like, oh, well, we don't have any appointments with him, but you can have our nurse practitioner that graduated last year. Do you want that? So we got, eventually got in. It's also like a little specific to Jewish people is we have this thing called Bikur Cholim, which is people visit sick people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's a big thing. And they also have a setup in the hospital. So the Bikur Cholim room, which is, I guess they pay the hospital to have a room. And that room is stocked with like all this kosher food, and like people bring it in all the time, and the restaurants donate it. And so we had like somewhere to hang out, and we had kosher food. And then people start calling, and like the first person that calls is the rabbi, because he hears, somebody tells him, and he hears, and what do you want? What do you want? So he gets my kid on the phone, and my kid says, I want French fry pizza. So we're like, okay, French fry pizza. So like, he comes over and he brings, and he's like, he gets on the phone with me, and he's like, is there anything you want? I'm like, just bring some vegetable soup, okay? just give us something that's somewhat normal. I didn't know pizza's hard. I don't know anything.
Right.
So, but I'm going on all the little Facebook groups, and somebody's got a friend, and the friend calls me, and they,
I'm fascinated that you found a Jewish doctor from Buenos Aires. I don't know how you did that.
Right? Yeah. Oh, there you Googled him.
Well, listen, you said his name was Javier Eisenberg, and I was like,
right?
wait a second.
Cool. He's a cool guy. Meanwhile, he kicked us out when he was 18, but we lasted 2 years.
Well, yeah. I mean, pediatrics, they move you on. They move you on when you're 18 for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, tell me about. I mean, I'm interested because I sort of know where your story goes to some degree, so I'm trying to pick apart a little bit. So let's find out next. When do you find the podcast in this process?
Pretty early.
Okay.
Pretty early. Because I was on Facebook groups. Like the first thing I did was like very specific, Jewish mothers in New Jersey, diabetes, the very specific groups. And then and then somebody knew you and was on your podcast. I don't think you had a Facebook group yet.
Yeah,
it was
not if it was
3.5 years ago.
That thing's coming up on 2 years. So
yeah. I'm if you're on it, you definitely know I'm on it. I love that group. They're so great. And so we stayed in the we stayed for that weekend, the Shabbat, and they have an apartment, and they, you stay in their apartment, the Bikur Cholim people, and you get these like little gift box then with a little note in it, and my daughter wrote the note like months and months before, because anytime one of our friends is like, oh, we're packing boxes, I'm like, okay. So I go over with a couple kids and a couple nieces, and we're packing boxes, and my daughter was the one that wrote the note. So I was like, oh, that's so cool.
So people understand. So there's a community support at the hospital, and volunteers make up gift boxes. You had done that in the past, and your son ended up getting the note.
We got our own gift box.
It's hilarious. It's very funny. Hey, listen, any chance they kept him in the hospital for 8 days and 8 nights?
That would be cool.
I think they should, just for fun.
40 days and 40 nights. Yeah. No, but it's holiday season.
Right.
So we were scared that he was there that Shabbat, but we were scared he was going to be there. 3 days later is Yom Kippur, which is like a very, very big holiday, and it's a fast day. That was his first basal test, was Yom Kippur. So, thank God he was out, and we were able to do that. He just stayed home, but at least we were out.
Well, how was his blood sugar super high at diagnosis, or no?
So once he was 13, and his sugar was 330.
Okay.
And then by December's the next time they took it, it was 6.8, and it was 7 after that.
Right.
So he was pretty controlled right away. We got a Dex right away.
Mm-hmm.
The first appointment, we had this fabulous nurse, and the 6 had just come out. So she was like, you want the 6, but it might be hard to get because it just came out. So, so she's prodding us. She's like, is there any reason that I can tell the insurance to expedite it? Like, does he go to school, further? I'm like, yeah, he goes to school in New York, And they're like, and does he play sports? I'm like, yeah. He's an athlete. He's an athlete. Like, he played 2 varsity sports, but like, it's yeshiva league floor hockey, it's not exactly major league here, but he plays sports, that's going to bring his blood sugar down no matter what, if he's pushing.
Yeah. Oh,
so we got the Dex right away. And then the pump, they require you to do training. It's not that they didn't want to order it, but there's pump training.
They had rules. They wanted you to follow.
They had rules. But so we go in the first time, everybody's there. I'm there. My husband's there. He's there, all pump trainers and everything, and they put a whole bunch of wooden fruit and vegetables and the smallest bowl of rice you ever saw, and a little potato and a big apple, and they want you to be able to figure out what 15 carbs is. So each thing is 15 carbs.
Mm-hmm.
So that was kind of cool. I like that. And then the next visit already, they're showing us pumps, and they wanted us to be, but like they were pushing the basal IQ because they're like, this is safer. Okay. We're going to do the basal IQ. And that, or, some teenagers really like the Omnipod because it's, simpler and it doesn't have tubing and stuff. So my son took one look at it and he's like, I'm not having wires coming out of my body. Right. He was just like not at all interested in if it was a better quality or not, I don't care.
He didn't care.
I want the Omnipod. So it turns out it's great quality. We're very happy with the Omnipod, and we're waiting for the 5 to come out.
Yeah.
He also wouldn't loop. They would have let us loop, but he would not do it because we started on Aras. He wouldn't do it because he's like, I'm not doing that. It's not FDA approved. I don't know. But I was trying. I tried.
My daughter said, what is this? Is it going to kill me? And I was like, I don't think so. She's like, all right.
Right? Fine, whatever.
I give it a shot then.
Yeah.
Okay, so how would you characterize his first couple of years with diabetes in a couple of different regards? Was the health part of it where you want it to be? Was it a struggle? Did you figure it out? And how did he handle it emotionally? Was he, did he kind of mesh with diabetes, or did he brusque against it? How did all that go?
So he is a very like chill kid. Like nothing really phases him.
Mm-hmm.
So he wasn't like, oh, this stinks, he was nothing. And in the beginning, when he's, testing blood sugars and MDI, he had a huge box, this Tide Pod box, and he would bring it like all over the place and be like, hey, you want to eat a Tide Pod, and he was very proud of his, I think he was very proud of his amount of needle district,
Oh, so he was keeping his like old like syringes in this Tide Pod box.
Yeah, that was our sharps container.
Nice.
And he would like offer it to people to eat, So and like he would go, like he's very, very social. So he would go to these events, and like NCSY is the youth groups that they're in. So they have stuff every week, they have stuff every Shabbat. And he'd be with a group of people and he'd be like, hi, I'm diabetes, like I don't know, he was not particularly fazed by it. I would say in the very beginning, he missed a whole month of school because the doctor was just like, all right, let him get used to it. And in the fall, there's like school every 2 days. You have like at the most 2 days a week because of all the holidays. So they're like, just stay home until the holiday season is over, and then he'll come back. So he goes back to school, and his friends were like, we thought you got kicked out. Why didn't you call us? And he's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm going to call you and say, hi, I got diabetes. Like that was the very beginning. And then by the end, by like 2 months in, yeah, he was like saying, hi, I'm diabetes. Like it was not something that he was at all ashamed of.
Right. When you guys are on holidays, we all just sit around at public school and we're like, thank God for the Jewish people and all their holidays.
Oh, thank you. I wish we got all of them off in public school.
I don't know what this Yom Kippur thing is, but I got the whole day off, baby.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you can eat too. That's like amazing.
And I can eat too. Yeah, it was a whole free day for us.
Yeah.
No, we used to.
I don't know. I have Muslim patients, and they got a whole month.
You get a month?
They get a whole month of not eating, and the kids do it too. Like the older kids do it.
They fast for a month.
They do it. Yeah, Ramadan is a whole month.
Like
we have 6 days a year.
6 days.
That's quite the basal test.
I sometimes forget to eat. I don't know if that counts as fasting though. For a whole day.
That's totally it. That's exactly the same.
I don't know. Totally. I don't feel compelled by any religious reasons when I do it. I just forget. So, so you think, so he's laid back, he's doing okay, but then, I become, aware of you, but through the Facebook page, but I don't really know you. To this moment, I don't really know you, but I didn't really speak to you until you reached out directly because your son was going over. Why don't you tell people what did he want to do and what were your concerns?
Well, he was going for his year in Israel, which pretty much everybody. Oh, well, I'll say that and then I'll back up, I guess. He was going for his year in Israel, which pretty much 90% of the kids in his school did. Mm-hmm. Are going to, and it's a yeshiva year, which is like a religious stuff, but it's also traveling and it's hiking and it's, just learning to be a grown up and having a great time with friends. And it's a great year. And my older two girls did it, and he's not staying home. There's no way that, this is keeping him home. So I was a little worried because the last time he went to Israel, which was only for a month, he came back with a 9.7 and he had kidney stuff and he was a disaster on his own.
Okay.
So that was a year after diagnosis, almost a year.
So and give me a second. A year after diagnosis, he went for a month. And then he came back and his A1C had gone up significantly while he was there.
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now you're I get him back. I assume you get back to the way they were when he was with you, but now you're looking at him being gone for a year.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm a little bit thinking he might kill himself by accident, So I'm trying to stack the odds. So there's 2 other type 1s in his particular school. There's more in the neighborhood and in different schools, but his school has 3 this year. I don't know who's older, but this particular year he has 3. So he's living with one of them in the room. And then the third guy in the room is this very good friend of his that's an EMT. And the Israel tour that he did for the summer was the EMT tour, which you get to be, and you get a certificate. It's an EMR. And it was a great, great experience for him. He actually saved a life, and they make a very, very big deal about it. He got a medal from the state of Israel that he saved a life. And, they have this big celebration, and he's called up for this big celebration. So it was like a really good experience for him. And I also was like stacking the odds picking that tour because the other tour he wanted was surfing. So I was like, let's do the one with the medical professionals.
I just had this whole image in my head that they get the kids over there and then they stage a medical emergency and let them pretend that they saved a life so they feel good.
Right? I know. I know that there's a lot of Jewish lawyers in Israel, but I think that it's just not as litigious a society because they're letting 16-year-olds do all sorts of stuff that I don't think they would let you do here.
I'm dying.
After like 3 days of training.
I'm dying. What I need is a 16-year-old boy who's just left his mother for the first time to help me.
Right?
Yeah. Not exactly comfort fulfilling. So when you
I know. I mean, what did he do? They told him push here and he pushed here, like they had the machine on it,
I'm telling you, the whole thing was a setup. They were actors. They were
actors.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah. When you reach out to me, what is what were you looking for that day? Because I remember speaking to your son on the phone and thinking he was not thrilled to be on the phone.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah. So, his A1Cs are fine. Like this, he was like 6.6 and it was 5.9, it's 5.8, 6.1, 6. But in Israel, he was 6 this last time, November, which is his own, I would say that's his own A1C.
Right.
But his variability is horrible. He is not a straight line guy. He's don't pre-bolus enough and go away in the sky and then just keep hitting it until it comes down finally and you get a double hour down and then catch it and then, eat again 5 minutes later. And, his variability and his waves are bad.
So he's not managing. He's just stopping bad things from happening, but that's happening pretty constantly.
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah. Right. If the Dexcom runs out of numbers and gives you words, that's bad. Right?
Isn't that bad? So
he's sure that's bad.
Yeah. No, he runs out of numbers and gives you words. But he's jumping up to 400 at times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. He's up, he's down, he's all over the place.
And you have now I know that's not what you want. But you're having trouble impressing that upon him.
Yes. So I am a podcast listener and I listen to all of your podcasts, which I really enjoy.
As everyone should.
As everyone should.
That's correct.
But he's not. He's not. Yeah. So it's going through the filter of me, and I'll tell him bump and nudge, hit it a little bit, or this one you should, hit it harder, or remember. I can't tell you if you looked at the text chats. I can't tell you how many times I've written the word pre-bolus in the text chats.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, he'll say he's doing it, but then we'll have a meeting with the endo or the CD or whatever. And she'll be like, okay, so your breakfast seems to be rising a lot. What are you doing? Are you pre-bolusing? And he's like, oh yeah, totally. And she's like, okay, good. So what are you eating? And he's like, eating 3 bowls of cereal in a 10-minute pre-bolus. And that's what he thinks is a pre-bolus.
So when it doesn't work and it goes, I mean, he knows it's wrong. Like, I mean, going to 400, I'm assuming he doesn't feel well. Is there there's no indication from him that he's like, maybe we shouldn't do this? Like, he just doesn't, I don't want to say he doesn't care, but he doesn't care. Are you not quite ready for an insulin pump, but you don't just want to use syringes? Makes sense to me. If that's the situation you find yourself in right now, I think you should take a moment to look at the InPen from Medtronic Diabetes. InPen is today's sponsor, and there is a ton of information about it at InPentoday.com. Now, there are links in the show notes of your podcast player and links at juiceboxpodcast.com to InPentoday.com. If you can't remember how to type in the little thing, InPentoday.com, but you should probably be able to remember it. So let's assume you have. You're on your browser, you make it to InPentoday.com. What do you see right away? Ooh, there's some moving video. Someone's showing you the InPen. And they're holding their phone, their cell phone. Why would they be doing that? Oh, is it because the InPen connects to an app on your phone? Uh-huh. And does that app give you current glucose readings, dosing calculator, meal history, active insulin remaining, glucose history, dosing history, an activity log, and reports that you can look at or generate for your doctor? Well, it does. The InPen is not just an insulin pen. It's more. And it may cost you as little as $35. Is that not crazy? Head over to InPentoday.com to find out. InPen doesn't want cost to be a roadblock to you getting the therapy you need. So with the InPen Access Program, you could pay as little as $35. Offers available to people with commercial insurance. Terms and conditions apply, of course, but you'll learn more at InPentoday.com. While you're there, check out the 24-hour technical service, hands-on product training, online educational resources, insights from actual users, and much, much more. You can even get started right now with an easy form that they have here for you. It just says ready to try. Fill in your name, phone number, a little bit more information. The next thing you know, you're on your way to using the InPen. InPen requires a prescription and settings from your healthcare provider. You must use proper settings and follow the instructions as directed, or you could experience high or low glucose levels. For more safety information, visit InPentoday.com.
I would say he's trying, but he's really not that good at bolusing. Like, his basal is, if he doesn't eat and he's in bed all day, he's got a beautiful line. It's nice and straight.
The settings are good.
Yeah, I don't know if his, maybe his carb ratio is bad, but he's mostly just winging it. So sometimes, the other day, he's taunting me and he says, I ate 4 pieces of pizza. Did you see it? And I didn't. And I was like, oh, okay. He
Right.
figured out pizza. But, and last night all the boys do these like little side gigs to get spending money. So his side gig, he decided, is going to be making General Chow's chicken. So he doesn't cook. Mm-hmm. But he decided he's going to learn, he and his friend, he's got a recipe, he's learning how. I'm like, okay, so fried chicken with cornstarch and flour bathed in sugar sauce. Yeah. That's going to be, like, can't you be the protein shake guy?
That's going to be him.
Like, no. He's like, no, it was really good. I'm like, yeah, I'm sure it was.
So prior to him leaving for this year, was this happening still? Like, were you involved and you were you were making pre-boluses happen, or was it same situation, just he was in the same country?
I'm gonna say his best A1C was those 6 weeks I was home for COVID, and he was in his room, and I would just like go in there and do it. But I can't like honestly say I'm better at it than him, because he's doing it all day. So
you've never been,
sometimes he gets it right and sometimes he doesn't.
Yeah, but you've never been the main person taking care of it.
No.
Okay.
Anytime he eats, he's the one that puts it in.
All right. So you wouldn't say that are you any better? Like, you don't even know, I guess, if you're better at it than he is.
I know that I'm not going to ignore it and just hang out.
But about the timing and the pre-bolusing and things like that, like you. Like,
I don't know carb numbers of things. I would look it up.
Okay.
But I certainly know all of the rules. He knows about fat and protein. He knows about how long, something's going to take to hit him.
Right. But I don't think we're talking about understanding it. I think we're talking about the will to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if he was,
how do I give him the will?
I don't know. But I'm asking first, do you have it? Like, if we magically made him 6 years old and you were just in charge, is that like who you like? I'm trying to find out if you and he are the same person. Like, so like, you know what I mean? Like, if you were in charge, do you think you'd be like, oh, I forget the pre-bolus and we end up chasing it around all the time? Like, do you think you'd be him?
I hope not. I don't know. I mean, for my own health, I personally eat a very low carb diet.
Okay.
And it's mostly for weight, but hey, I was expecting this question and you didn't get a chance to ask this question.
How do you know?
So
go ahead.
Because I never let you talk. You can have good stats on this one.
Allie, listen, every Jewish mom is going to listen straight through to it. Everyone else is probably turning it off, but you go ahead. You keep going. No, I'm just teasing you. You're fine.
Because they want to hear Scott.
No. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, at what you've described is basically about 3 years where you haven't been at any time the primary caregiver on the insulin, and he's chasing it around, and you want him to be better at it, but like you don't know what to do about it. And I'm trying to ask the question, if you were in charge of it, would you be better at it?
I think so. I don't have the data of my body, but the other day I see like a double arrow down, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, 60 double arrow down. So I'm texting him. And then he gets to the LOW. And then I find out later when I talked to him, they had a push-up contest. Okay, they had a push-up contest. Like, well, you know what to do. What are you supposed to do in your exercise? Turn it down, turn it off, turn it down an hour before, have something to eat before. He's like, that's not how it works. Like, I can't, go with the guys and be like, oh, sorry, can we have this push-up contest in an hour? I need to turn down my basal. Like, he's not doing that.
Yeah, but what about in that situation where he's like, oh, geez, we're about to do this. I'll take in a bunch of carbs now to avoid the low instead of experiencing the low and then taking in the carbs. Because he's gonna end up doing the same functional thing.
Right.
It's just that in one situation he would avoid a problem, in the other situation he's steeped in it. But so seriously though, hold on. You have not answered my question yet. If he was 6 years old,
am I better than him?
No,
It's not a good question.
No, not that. If he was 6 years old, do you have the personality? Like, let me give you a different example. 2 days ago.
Yeah, I think I could do it with all of the information that I've taken in. I think I could do that. So, because I would like weigh the food and type it in and figure it out, and extend. Like, he extends boluses, but he just doesn't always do it right.
But would you pre-bolus? Because pre-bolusing is his problem.
Yeah,
you would. Because like for instance, the other day, Arden's like they kept them home from school again. So she's the middle of the day. She's done school already. She's hanging out where Kelly works, and they get lunch together. And then they got a dessert to go with lunch, but they weren't going to eat it right away. And a couple hours after lunch, I was walking through the kitchen, and Arden's like, "Hey, I'm going to have that dessert now." And I was like, "Oh, well, go ahead and bolus for it." And she bolused, and I was near it, so I kind of put it on a plate, and I brought it to her, and I set it down, and she reached out for it with these big excited eyes, and I went, "No."
Right.
And she's like, "What?" I'm like, you've got to let this bolus work first. I was like, just don't look at it, do whatever you're going to do, but we're not eating this for at least 10 minutes. And like, you, like, I don't know I can't figure out what your relationship is with
Could I
him.
force a 6-year-old to do it? I could force a 6-year-old to do it.
Okay. Would you be able
but
to?
I don't know if I could force a 19-year-old to do it.
Right. No, I hear what you're saying.
I could just bug him. I could just like bug him until he, whatever. Until he still doesn't listen to me.
I'm not sure how this is going to sound. Like, so I don't think, like, when I do it, I don't believe that I'm badgering her or bugging her. I don't believe that I think I'm reminding her, and then I have the wherewithal or the strength to stand in front of her while she ignores me and tell her not to ignore me. Like, I don't just, like, that thing where parents are like, don't do that, and kids are like, go to hell, and they're like, all right, and then it just happens anyway. Like, I'm not I'm not uncomfortable in the uncomfortable part. Like, I can stand there and be like, listen, we have to wait 10 minutes. You just really can't eat this. But I don't know that a lot of people are comfortable with that. I guess I'm asking if you are.
I'm comfortable with it, but
It
I'm
doesn't
not
work
on him.
Oh,
like, I'm not with him, and I'm not on him.
So why not?
Like,
that's my real question.
I'm texting and like, do it.
But I'm saying the difference.
So how do
the difference between like bugging him and actually making it happen? Like, he's 19. Like, you have recourse. Like, here's one: you can't go to Israel if you don't pre-bolus. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm wondering like where that is, or if it's just not your relationship. Like, I'm not judging it. I'm just trying to figure it out. So, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if even, like, sometimes things just grow the way they grow. Like, would he not?
Yeah.
Like, is there no world where you'd say to him, listen, man, this is a significant issue for your health, and I don't care that your A1C comes back in the 6s. Your blood sugar's been 300 and 400 over and over again, and you're catching dangerous lows. Like, at some point, this isn't going to be okay. This can't be your path forward. Because, I mean, I don't know. It feels like we all know where we're at, and we're kind of pretending like we're not there. Does that make sense? I bummed you out. Did I bum you out? I didn't mean to bum you out. I'm sorry.
No. It's good. It's good.
Go ahead.
So another thing we're like trying to do is sort of the get to the right answer the wrong way. Is like I don't know. So in that breakfast scenario, for the 45 minutes before breakfast, he's in the services. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I don't want to take out my phone and do something. And so I'm like, just put in a couple units. Like, how hard is that? He's like, no, I can't do it. It's in the middle of services. I'm not going to do that. So we put it in the basal. So I put 2 units in the basal that just goes in automatically a half an hour before his breakfast and dinner times.
Yeah.
And then lunch, he has a longer lunch. So he can do that. But, he's got like a flat 1.2. And then at 9 o'clock, he's, that hour, his basal is 5. And then it's 1.2 again. So
and that's you compensating for not pre-bolusing, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right.
And he's a little bit like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to eat. So I need to see it.
Right.
And then I have a half an hour, they don't give you that much time. Breakfast is a half an hour and then you go into class.
Right.
So.
Like, I'm not listen, I understand. There's plenty of times. We're
trying to figure it out.
Yeah. There's plenty of times where Arden's like, I'm hungry, but I don't know what I want. And then she'll do that thing where she's like, well, I'm not going to eat because I can't figure out what I want to eat. And, it happened like last night, like late last night. She's like, I'm hungry. I was like, all right, eat something. And she's like, I don't know what I want. And then I'm like, well, what about this? And you start playing that game, and then they're like, no, no, no. And then you get to there's nothing in the house. I'm like,
Yeah.
sure, I spent $600 at the grocery store. There's nothing in the house. So listen, I'm not unaware of the fight. I'm just saying he's in a unique situation where because of his traveling, he's got the real ability to ignore you if he wants to.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Unless I cut him off.
Unless you cut him off.
But well, I mean, I don't know. Like he wanted to stay for Army. And I don't know if he's gonna stay for Army because he's not controlled.
Right.
So, they're doing a ton of hiking and jumping around and all kinds of stuff. And the food is whatever the food is. You don't have a kitchen that you can start grilling chicken.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if he's going to do that. We'll see.
Right.
But he's got to figure it out.
Yeah. That was one of the things that you'd mentioned to me back then was that he wanted to do a year in the service in Israel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And my niece is doing it now. It's like, it's a great thing for them. They really, they get strong, they feel powerful, and it's it's a million 19-year-olds running around together.
Right.
And she wanted to do, I think, like a social work one, and he wanted to be in a hospital, like a field hospital or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Getting medical training. But yeah, they do some cool things. But he could also be the guy giving out boots. If he's not controlled and they see that he's not up for it, they're not going to give him a good job. Mm-hmm. So
do you think,
not that the guy giving out boots is not an important job, but he
might not be doing what he wants
to
do.
That's not his goal.
Yeah. And does he see those things as connected, do you believe? Like getting to his goal and managing his blood sugars? Yeah.
I don't know if he sees it connected. A little bit he does. Like day to day, I don't feel good. Well, hey, I could tell you why you don't feel good.
Well, when you put me on the phone with him, my interpretation was he resented it happening. I thought he did. Okay. I thought he wasn't happy about it, but I wasn't on that end. What did you think on your end?
I think he thinks he knows everything.
Okay.
He doesn't need advice because he already knows. Mm-hmm. And he's handling it just fine.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I mean, look, that is the basic vibe that comes off of every young adult that I've ever spoken to who's kind of lived past this part and then looks back on it. They'll say, oh, I thought I knew everything. My blood sugars were all over the place. I was fine. I didn't care. Somebody tried to help me. I ignored them. But then the last thing they always say is, I wish someone would have just pushed me harder. But they say that, they say it in retrospect. So I honestly can't say what would happen in the moment if that's what happened. I just know that in retrospect, every older 20-year-old looks back on themselves at the time we're talking about with your son and says, I wish my doctor or my mother would have tried harder, or said, but I think what they mean is, I wish they could have gotten through to me. But I don't know if, the same mind you make that statement with when you're 25 is the same mind you have when you want to go, to Israel for a year when you're 19. I'm not sure. Right. It's a weird situation to be in. I mean, have you ever tried, I'm just wondering now as we're talking, like, because it's such a big part of your life, have you ever tried explaining this to a rabbi and having the rabbi talk to them?
That's interesting. So the rabbis in the program, one of them did talk to him just about, he doesn't know specifics, but he knows if you're missing class because you're sick and you know how to take care of yourself, do it. So,
right.
That you have to take better care of yourself. I think that the loop is definitely going to be a game changer for him. But he could still bolus bad.
Yeah, the algorithms are not going to get in front of you not pre-bolusing. they can't, and not at this moment. Like, can they one day in the future? Like, maybe. But for now, it's still not going to work that way. Like, he's got a pre-bolus.
Yeah. And how long do you say a pre-bolus is, or it's just different for every food?
It's different. It's different depending on the food you're eating, how quickly your insulin works, and what your blood sugar is to begin with, right? Like, when you're 85, your pre-bolus is different than if you're 120, and is different than if you're 150. And to be honest, if you're 150, you're not really pre-bolusing, you're correcting and bolusing at the same time, So I don't know if there's a time to it. I would say this, if he's doing none at all, even just getting him to commit to 15 minutes would be a big deal. And then, what I mean?
So he thinks a pre-bolus is 15 minutes. Because that's what, no, he will. He will.
But it's not.
Or sometimes he'll split wrong. Like, he'll give a 50-50 split, but he really needs almost all of it up front. Maybe just the nuances.
Well, maybe that tool is too advanced for him. Maybe he shouldn't be splitting his boluses unless he really gets it. Because maybe he's applying extended boluses where they don't belong. I mean, that's possible. I don't know. I haven't seen the data or anything like that. But that's one of the things that I see people do sometimes. They get excited. They're like, oh, I found out about extended boluses. Then they try to use it everywhere. And, they're not appropriate everywhere. So now you think you're putting in 7 units, but you're really putting in, 3.5. And your blood sugar's shooting up while this other 3.5 is trickling in and really not doing much good except holding you under 300. That could be it. Maybe he's outsmarted himself, in some situations. But being 400 and needing to correct afterwards, I mean, that would seem to me too, that it's just not enough insulin for the meal. Like either the ratio's off or he's eating something that's wildly more glycemically heavy than his ratio is prepared for. That would be my guess. But I don't know how you explain that to him if he feels like he knows everything. You know what I mean? It's a tough situation. I feel for you. I feel for everybody.
Yeah, he takes advice. And a lot of times I'll just be like, just even it out. Like, just give a little bit, and he'll be like, by the power of Grayskull, and he'll like whack the damn thing down. And then he'd be like, no, too much,
Just goes the wrong way.
Right. Yeah. And then, and then it's low, and you'd be like, okay, this is, you're at 60, you need 20 points. Like, 20 points is not that much, And then he'll be like, okay, I'm just going to eat, a granola bar and a spoon of peanut butter and a little bit of juice. And you're like, you just ate like 50 carbs. Like, that's not going to help you. It's just not.
Do you have hope that he'll figure it out?
Too much.
You know him personally.
He's a smart kid. If he takes the time to think about it, and sometimes he does, if he takes the time to think about it, then he will definitely get it. The caring is hard to give him. But I mean, obviously the goal is the only time I paid him to listen to your pro tips. I paid for pro tips. I gave him like $20 and a full day of mom not bugging you was what he got paid for pro tips. And it was not a great deal. That's a really good deal.
I take it. Did it work, do you think? Or do you think he just gave him some tools and not the rest?
He did about 10 of them. He started with exercise and he did all of the shorter ones, regardless of the topic. So I'm going to say, if you're redoing pro tips, put out some little ones. Well, the defining diabetes are all really short,
right?
And the variables are all really short.
Yep.
So maybe I'll try to get him on those. Be like, forget the pro tips. Just do the variables.
Yeah, maybe it was too much for him all at once. And that's actually true too. Like, I don't think you should dive into the pro tips at exercise if you don't understand the rest of it. You know what I mean? Like the basics, it's just like anything else. Like you got to lay down a foundation of basic concepts, and then you can build into these, more intricate ideas, I guess. It's just, I don't know. Listen, it's really tough. It makes me, I don't know. I'm pretty happy I have a daughter, not a son at the moment.
I got 3 daughters.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. They listen fine, right?
They listen. They cook dinner for me. They do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, he's good. I hope he is able. Like, what I'm worried about is that he won't be able to do the things in life that he wants to do.
Yeah. No,
because
I understand.
He's too busy ignoring the things he has to do. Yeah.
I won't get to do the things he wants to do. Yeah. I mean, to me, it's going to
like, he's just like, okay, I don't, yeah, diabetes, whatever. But he's not going to be able to do what he wants to do.
Right.
If he doesn't.
Does he not believe that?
Take care of it.
He doesn't believe that's actually going to happen,
know.
right? I don't know. It's tough. Does your husband get involved in this?
My husband is like awesome. He went to like all the educator things and stuff. But he's not like the day-to-day, I'm going to text you if your blood sugar is 180, I'm going to text you guy. Like, he's got a job and he's more big picture.
He's doing his thing. You do your thing.
Yeah. He'll talk to him. He'll be like, dude, like, what the heck are you doing? Like, just take care of yourself. I'm not going to tell you how, but just do it. And I'll be like, put in 3.2 right now. Like that's more of my vibe. Or I'll send him, when he was on Basaglar, like in the very beginning, he was on Basaglar and he's supposed to take 10 units at 10 o'clock. So they did it so he'd remember.
Right.
Right. And then he doesn't, then he falls asleep on the couch or he just forgets or whatever. So his alarm's on and my alarm's on. And, the first couple of times I'm like, go downstairs, go find him, go get it, And then, he'll be like, hey, get off the TV. You got to give it a shot. And then I was like, okay, we got to like get creative on this. So I started downloading like hundreds of pictures of basilisks and mythical creatures. And I would like text him one of those at 10 o'clock every night. Be like, I'm like, just a little bit of a different vibe that is like, it's not because I'm bugging you. It's just, I'm a weird person sending you weird pictures of basilisks, obviously, like at 10 o'clock. And it reminds him, like, I'll very often, I'll like wake up in the morning and his blood sugars stinks. And I'll be like, I'll text him like, hey, good morning. How's your day? And he'll be like, oh, it's a text from mom. I guess I better look at my blood sugar.
So he knows.
And then he'll fix it.
He will.
That makes him fix it.
Okay. So just not being told like directly.
Yeah.
And just kind of indirectly helps.
I think so.
Okay.
He might feel like I'm still bugging him. But I remember one time you were talking about, if you're like just parenting in general, is like you can't always lead with diabetes because then they think that that's like the only thing that you care about. So I try very often lead with diabetes, but I try to be like, oh, how's your classes? How's this? How's the trip? How's it, to just talk to him about other things. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know.
I want to ask you about like basal versus bolus ratios, because his endo, she wanted to increase his carb rate. She wanted to increase his basal because his percentage was like 20% and she wanted it higher, his basal percentage.
Okay.
So she's got some rule that makes sense. And she's like, his basal should be higher. So then he raised his basal and then he was like always going low and it didn't work. But his highs after eating were not as high. But he was always, if he wasn't eating, then he was always fixing lows. So it was sort of just like putting a blanket on top of it. But he still had to, like, I don't think it was the right basal. because supposedly the basal is supposed to keep you flat if you're not eating. So it didn't really do that.
Okay. So, all right.
But it sort of helped. It sort of helped in its own way.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Give it to me one more time, just real bare bones. What happened? One more time.
Okay. So he's up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you see an up and down chart, you're like, okay, more basal. So she just said more basal, and she was going off of this percentage that endocrinologists use that says your basal should be 40% of your total daily insulin. And because he has to correct a lot, and because he's eating a ton of carbs, his bolus ratio is too much bolus. So
I don't know
if I raise the basal.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that completely. So up and down, but what I would ask, I wouldn't even bother with that. Like what I would ask first is when he's away from meal insulin and he's away from food by 3 hours, let's say, where does he sit stable? Like, is his blood sugar, like when it finds stability, is it stable at 85 or is it stable at 160?
Ah, okay. So when was the last fast day?
Even overnight, do you not see stability overnight?
He's up overnight. He's up and eating overnight.
He's awake. Okay.
And running around and doing stuff. Like, there's not a specific time that he's sleeping. I don't think. I mean, maybe from 3 to 5 he'll be, or 3 to 7 or 8. The schedule is they get up, they start at 8.
Yep.
And then I'm gonna find it. Honey, what day was the last fast day? Can you look up the date? It's on your phone. Right. It was about a month ago. I'm just gonna look at the clarity line.
Thank you.
And see what it was.
No, I mean, I'd love to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good to get into the grit of it. Helps people.
Yeah.
You want to do falafel while we're waiting? How would you do falafel?
How would I eat a falafel?
It's a new food. He just started eating it.
I don't know.
It's a fresh pita.
Okay.
Which is less bulk than 2 pieces of bread, but it's just flour and water, no preservatives or anything.
Right.
What was it? December 14th. Can you find it for me? Just scroll up and down. It's chickpeas fried. It's like chickpea, they make it and there's mush, and then they put 5 falafel balls in and it's fried. And then on top is like salad, and sometimes there's like a couple French fries. Well, and then if there's a paste, there's like a sauces or chickpea paste and sesame paste. So he ate it and he had no idea how to bolus for it, but
the internet says
talk it out.
Falafel's about 5.5 carbs for a patty that's approximately 2.25 inches in diameter.
Okay.
So I don't know. Like, I mean, I would.
So what would you do?
I would treat it like bread. And I mean, the first time I did it, I would just go with this. And I would treat it like bread at first. And I mean, chickpeas, salad,
chickpeas have some carbs and some protein, and then you're frying it.
Yeah. Then you're frying it. And then you're saying sometimes there's French fries on it.
Yeah, if you go to a good place, there's a couple fries on top.
If you go to a good place, there's fries. Hold on a second. That's funny.
It's only like 5 because they got to shove it in that thing.
So, I mean, that's what I would do. I would start with just a simple carb count, and then I would see what happens and try it again.
So just the pita, and then do the protein later?
I'm looking online right now. Hold on a second. So we got the carbs for the falafel. Let's try chickpeas.
December 14th.
Oh, chickpeas have a fair amount of carbs. Hold on a second.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a fair
All right.
amount of carbs in
Like
chickpeas.
it's also like it's hard sometimes.
Well, here's what
He
I
knows
have.
pizza.
Hold on a second.
Okay, what do you got?
I have a half a cup of chickpeas is 27 carbs.
Okay.
So chickpeas are 7.8 grams per tablespoon. So if this falafel was legitimately 2.25 inches around and he had two of them and it had chickpeas in it, then we're looking at 5, 10, 11, 18. I mean, and then French fries and fat and everything. I mean, that falafel could have been 25 or 30 carbs, really.
Okay. So would you put 30 carbs up front?
Yeah, I would. I don't split insulin until something proves to me it needs to be split.
Oh.
Yeah.
So you mostly put everything up front?
Yeah, I don't split insulin until it tells me until experiences tell me otherwise. And even then, with the things that Arden eats, it's more like it's not even like splitting it as much as it's like a fat and protein rise later. If that's going to happen, it's almost a secondary bolus.
Okay.
You know.
Okay, so his flat line, it was December 14th, but his flat line at 1.2 was, I could send you a screenshot, but it was like hovering around 80. It went a little lower, it went a little higher, it went a little lower, it went a little higher, it went a little lower. And then at the end, he was low. He said he was walking to get food. So it hovered around 80. It's a little lower, a little higher, but that's
the bigger picture is that in the last 30 days, he's had one time when his blood sugar was stable at 85. No, but
the next day,
I'm trying to figure out if it works.
He had a nice flat day, you know.
But I'm trying to figure out if the basal works, because the up and down might have nothing to do with the basal.
Yeah, that's December 19th was a nice flat day. I could send you 90 days. I could send you 100 days, but
do you see what I'm saying?
Third was a nice day, you know, whatever. If he's not eating, he's great at diabetes. He's got to eat.
So if he's not,
I almost brought him home for a grilled cheese because he was so high and for so long. And finally, and he fell asleep and he didn't answer the phone. And finally, he gets to me and he's like, "Oh, I put in a turkey sandwich. I should have put in a pizza." Because the fat was keeping him higher longer. Mm-hmm. And it's different. Like he knows turkey sandwich. He eats turkey sandwiches like 100 times. You know, he's eaten turkey on rye 100 times. Mm-hmm. And he basically knows that food. I think he needs to like pay attention to specific foods he eats and then like learn. I told him, I'm like, if you learn, you know, whatever whatever chicken you want, if you learn General Chow chicken and your blood sugar doesn't go up to 300 every time you eat it, then, you know, fine.
Right.
It's not the best food, but I'm not going to bug you about it.
I mean, listen, from your explanations of what you're seeing, my best bet is that he's not putting in the amount of insulin that the food requires when it's required. And and if, you know, fair enough, he's 19 and, you know, so so there's going to be off eating and things like that and weird sleeping patterns. But when he is, you know, fasting, his basal works that well, I wouldn't be looking at the basal for these other problems then. I'd be thinking about
the week later, with the new like higher basal. Mm-hmm. So was the week that they take him to Poland. So it's a very, very hard week. It's like a lot of stress and a lot of walking.
Was he low a lot?
And he was low a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me to turn up the basal.
Right. It doesn't mean it's wrong because he's walking.
Well, no, but still, it doesn't make, just based on what you told me, if you told me he was spiking at meals and when he was fasting, his blood sugar was 85, what do? There's no way I would have said to turn up the basal. I would have said the meals are your issue.
Right.
You know, and that doesn't necessarily mean ratio. It could be his interpretation of how much each meal needs. So maybe he's.
I don't know that he's actually using a ratio.
Well, no, he has one in his
just
settings.
Swagging it.
But I mean, he has one in his settings. His settings have
yeah, that's true.
1 unit or how many units per how many carbs. Like that's his ratio. That's what I mean by that. I mean, he's not coming close to getting the carbs right on stuff, is what it sounds like to me. I mean, if you made me just after this conversation tell you what I think is wrong, I don't think he's anywhere near getting his carbs correct. That's it, because he's doing a 15-minute pre-bolus. Fair enough. With a 15-minute pre-bolus, if you've got the right amount of insulin, you should not be seeing 300 and 400. So it sounds like he's significantly underestimating how many carbs are in what he's eating.
Right.
That's.
And he's not, I don't want to put it like too badly. He doesn't, sometimes he does it right.
No, I understand. Yeah.
He's not always at 400. He's, generally he's okay.
Yeah, I'm not saying that either. I'm saying that in the situations when it happens, this is what I think is happening. That's my best guess.
And just don't split the dose. Try to put it in earlier.
I mean, when you're eating things that are, 40, 50, 60, 70 carbs, I mean, I don't mess around with splitting the dose. I gave Arden, so yesterday, I don't know when the hell it was. She put her pod somewhere where I was like, don't put it there. It's not going to work well there. And she's like, you didn't tell me what to do. It's my body. And I was like, okay. And then she put it there. And
I love snarky Arden.
Yeah, and then 24 hours later, I was like, hey, your blood sugar is sitting at 120 and it's hard to get down. She goes, that's an okay blood sugar. I said, A, it's 45 points higher than I think it should be. And B, I don't care about the blood sugar as much as I'm telling you that the site is not acting the way it should. I was like, we've tried to correct this 120 a couple of times. It's taking too long for it to come down and it's finding its way back up again. This is the site. And then she goes and has some concoction of like rice and chicken and beans and all this stuff for lunch. And I said, you should change this pod before you eat this food. This pod's only like 2 days old and it's fine. And there's plenty of insulin left in it. And then 6 hours later, when I couldn't get her blood sugar under 180, I was like, are you ready to change the pod now? I don't want to change the pod. I was like, we're changing the pod. We changed the pod. And 2 hours later, I had her blood sugar back down at 90 again. And I said to her, all I said was, you got to stop putting the pod in that spot right now. Like that spot needs a break. And, so I let her live through, I let her live through the entire thing that I knew was going to happen, just so that 9 hours later I could say, please stop using that spot on your stomach. Just turn it, put it in a different place, whatever. And hopefully she'll, but I don't think that's the end of it. I think now I have to follow up. Like the next time she changes a pump, I'll say again, hey, listen, let's remember this spot here. We're going to give this spot a break for like 4 months. Like, don't put anything here for a while. Let's try, like that kind of thing. Like it needs a break. And she's like, it's just one of her favorite places. So,
he uses a lot of arms and legs for the pod. And I don't know, maybe it's the spot.
No, Arden likes her legs. They don't work as well as some other places, but they're not bad. She has to be kind of cajoled to do her arms. And then she'll do it, but she won't choose it on her own. On her own, she'll pick her thighs or her stomach.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was just that entire thing. I don't know. Like, it's not the last time I'm going to have to say it to her. And hopefully one day it'll just sink all the way in and she'll just give up. I do think they're in that part of, it's a very reasonable part of adolescence and growing up where you're trying to push back against authority and against your parents specifically. It's just, because our kids have diabetes, they get to do that instead of like, I'm going to the movies or I'm going to talk to this girl and not tell you or whatever. It's, I'll put my pump wherever I want to. So kind of sucks.
Yeah.
But, I would just tell him to spend.
Right. So eventually she's going to have to figure like tell herself, because she's going to be in France painting or whatever, doing design. And
might be Manhattan.
You're not going to know where it is.
Yeah, I don't think she's going to.
You'd be like, hey, did you use that stomach thing again? That's the wrong spot.
Yeah.
Like she's going to have to do it.
And I don't want to be that involved.
We're not there. I'm sure Arden is way, way, way better than my kid because she's been straight for so long.
I don't know about that.
She's got a good blood sugar for a long time.
Yeah, but I don't know that she's that much better. She's, a little younger than your son, but they have the same, kids that age all have the same vibe, like to some degree, and it's that, yesterday she's working on something as a part of her portfolio for a college submission. And I was upstairs working and I came down like 45 minutes later to get something to drink. And I looked at her blood sugar and I was like, am I the only one that sees the blood sugar? Is it just me? I didn't hear it. I pick up her phone. I'm like, well, your phone's muted. That's why you didn't hear it. You turned off the muting. That's why. Oh, yeah. She knows fine. Trust me.
We made a little bit of a deal that his alarms are really narrow and then mine are wider. But it doesn't really work because I check my phone all the time. But he, in order to have mommy not bugging me all the time and be able to do it myself, his alarms are, I think, they're like maybe 70, 120 or something like that, 130. And my alarms are, my alarms don't go off until it's too late. But I'm still bugging him because I remember one time I was listening to the NASA engineer. She's like, oh, I have action point. It's 117, and he's already 130. And I'm like texting him. And then finally, like 45 minutes later, he's like, I was in calculus class. Like, leave me alone. I'm 130.
Yeah. I see that too. Well, all right. Listen, if you pass one thing on to him,
okay,
I would think
I'm going to tell him whatever you say, Scott. I don't care if you listen.
I think he should put more effort into making sure that he understands how many carbs are in what he's eating. And I don't think he should be splitting boluses unless he knows it's a meal that he really understands that a split bolus is going to work for. Those are my two takeaways from this.
Okay.
All right.
More carb. Yeah.
Well, no, not more carbs. Make sure he knows how many carbs, and don't split boluses for things. Like if he knows it works for pizza, then great. But if he's splitting a bolus because he just thinks he should be splitting a bolus and he's getting high, I would stop splitting that bolus and see what happens.
Okay.
Those are literally my management takeaways from this.
I know we've been going for a while, but do you want to do dentistry?
Do dentistry? Oh my God. Well, so interesting.
Or you already had one.
I actually just interviewed a dentist last week.
Oh my gosh, really?
So,
okay.
Yeah, but that's your profession, correct?
Yes, I'm a dentist.
Well, give me your high level look at what people with type 1 should be doing in regards to.
All right, I'll tell you stuff that they don't necessarily tell you. My practice is a kid's practice, and I'm like, if the number of rotten teeth in your mouth exceeds your age, that's me. So like, okay. I get like 2-year-olds with, they got 6 teeth, they're all rotten.
Right.
I get like, I gotta deal with it. So a lot of people don't know about I know you've had issues with the iron, the liquid iron vitamin. That's only before you have teeth. Once you have teeth, you don't want that because it stains them and it gets stuck. And then, so, specifically for diabetes, like it's a gummy bear is going to stay there forever. Right. Mm-hmm. And juice, if you have juice and then water, then you're good. And then I would just say, from your people that, follow you all the time, just try not to feed the insulin. If you're if you're always juicing, then you got to, figure that out. So, but as far as what happens in diabetes, so prevention, you can do a fluoride toothpaste that's like higher fluoride. Mm-hmm. And you can use a fluoride rinse. And I always say like an electric toothbrush. But you can ask for a fluoride rinse. Ketones are acid. Like they produce acid in your mouth, which is why you get all those sores. So people get, like when they're first diagnosed, you get sores.
Okay.
And it trashes your gums. But that's not specifically for teeth
kids. Yeah,
as
their
much.
teeth.
It's more like you get mouth sores.
Mhm.
And some people feel it in their, like people have said on the podcast before that they feel it like a tingling if they have ketones. That's in the gums. And that's where, like, when you have acid being produced, that's when you use a base, like the, there's specific toothpastes that have a base in it.
Okay.
That's
like baking soda or something that
yeah, like a
works on-
baking soda
Right,
toothpaste.
right.
That's when you would use that. If you're high all the time and you produce ketones more, then you would use a baking soda in your toothpaste.
Cool.
And then if you're lower more and you're always juicing, then you need a fluoride.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody needs fluoride, but and then I would say, like, gum disease, they have like your little tiny blood vessels everywhere. Your little tiny blood vessels in your feet get messed up, and your little tiny blood vessels in your fingers get messed. So the little tiny blood vessels in your gums get messed up. So that's when they like start bleeding. So as far as gum care, there's a perio rinse that you can use. It's like Paradex, it's called.
Yeah.
And then, like, for kids with braces, like the water pick, and you can do a special scaling and a cleaning. And then doxycycline is a low dose antibiotic that they give people if their gums are really bad.
Okay.
But like, they don't give it, preventively, just if they're bad.
I just had a deep cleaning and I found it lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's lovely. Oh, it's so lovely.
It wasn't
Absolutely.
bad. I was so worried when I got there because they were like, we have to numb you for the deep cleaning. I was like, I have to get numbed for this? And then I got there and she just put this gel on it to numb my gums. And I was like, oh, you guys should have been more specific when you said numb me. I thought I was getting injections for this. But it was, I don't know, I thought it was nice. So basically, like, really like high level for people, you don't want sugar sitting in your mouth and you don't want stuff stuck in your teeth.
Yes.
Right?
A raisin is going to be worse for you than a big bowl of ice cream.
Right. Because that'll wash out with your saliva at some point. But
it's duration.
Right. And so, but a raisin could get stuck in a crack or a crevice and sit there until you brush again, if you're lucky. And then that's where rot begins. And so when people use juice overnight, simplest thing is to just swish with water afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. That helps.
Yeah. Just, don't give them Skittles when they're sleeping. I mean, that's not exactly high level, but.
Right. But so it is that simple.
Or just turn it down. If you got a drifter and you're, 70-65 drifting.
See if you can catch it.
So maybe don't juice it.
Yeah. See if you can catch it with basil if it's going so slow enough. So yeah, but seriously, like the high level, you don't want sugar sitting in your mouth and you don't want things stuck to your teeth. And it doesn't have to be something sugary stuck to your tooth, like a chewed up piece of a potato chip stuck in a crevice in your tooth is just as bad for you as a raisin, right? Like things stuck to your teeth is bad.
Yes.
Okay.
Things stuck to your teeth is bad, but potato chips will go out eventually.
Okay.
So bacteria eats sugar.
Yep.
Right? And it produces acid. So, and the acid is what dissolves your teeth. So you take a baby tooth, you throw it in a can of Coke, it's gone in like a couple days. It's gone. But there's no bacteria. So sometimes if people have acid and not bacteria, you'll see like a white film on the teeth. That's like the teeth turn like really chalky.
Okay.
And that's like acid without bacteria. And that you could definitely see with ketones if you get ketones, or if you have acid reflux, or I don't know, if you drink a lot of lemonade or whatever, that kind of stuff. And the bacteria it's interesting because the kids are not born with bacteria in their mouth. They usually get it, from mommy kissing them. Don't kiss your babies. No, but that's where you get it from. So there are people that don't get a lot of cavities because they don't have those bacteria.
So you're saying if I ever had a cavity, it's because I kissed my wife?
Yeah, probably somebody.
I'm gonna tell her.
I don't know. Maybe you ate some dirty lettuce. I don't know.
If we could just sit in a hermetically sealed room after birth, we'd be fine.
Yeah, if you're a bubble baby, you're awesome. And then the other thing I would say for the appointment, I would ask for an early morning appointment, because a lot of things in dentistry, you're either not supposed to eat beforehand or you're not going to eat afterwards. And, you know, you don't want to, you can always drink juice. They'll always let you drink juice. Mm-hmm. But, you know, but as far as, you know, if you're not, don't go to the dentist like after breakfast having a big meal kind of thing.
Okay.
Because you might barf. Just saying.
I don't want that. Yeah, some people are not good when you're in their throat, right? Like it's I had an impression.
You might see it later.
I had an impression done once, and the guy's like, "Are you going to be okay?" And I was like, "Why would I not be okay?" He goes, "You'd be surprised. Like a little bit of this impression material hits people in the back of their throat, and they can't handle it." And I was like, "I think I'll be all right," you know. So I got what he was saying, but I was okay with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a Dex, you'll see it. But like pain, if you have pain, you know, your blood sugar is going to go up, and not eating is going to make it go down. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to necessarily predict beforehand. But if you're having like a lot of stuff done and it might be painful, then
that's something to consider as well.
It's hard. Yeah, it's something to consider. Yeah. It's hard to tell up or down because you're also not eating. If your basal is solid and if you don't eat, it's nice and steady, then maybe you would need more if you're going to be in pain. Mm-hmm. Or maybe you just see if it happens and then correct.
Yeah. Yeah. There's some people that say that pain doesn't affect their blood sugar. Some people say it does. It's hard to know. That's why I'm saying just be aware of it. But I take your point. Earlier in the morning, people's blood sugars are a little more difficult early in the morning anyway. So if you're trying to avoid a low because you're going to the dentist, then that makes sense to me. Very nice. Cool. And so what do you do? Like you basically work on kids with some real tough problems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely drug them. You know, we have laughing gas. Okay. We have sedation. You know, if you're like, you know, if it's like 4 or 5 years old and they need like 6 crowns or more,
they panic.
Then you know, you need a little help.
Wow.
But you know, basically after 8 years old, they're fine. They're like
kind of hang.
They can sit and take it, and as long as you don't, you know, hurt them, then they're cool.
Little kids get crowns?
Oh yeah, man, it's hard. So I don't know. Some people don't know. It's good to know,
right?
Because you have a lot of, you know, you got a lot of pregnant ladies. Some people don't know that even nursing has sugar in it, and bottles have, you know, formula has sugar in it. So they'll give their kid a bottle all night and all day, and it's just bathing there. And then when they're asleep, they don't swallow it. So it just soaks and soaks. Ugh. So they'll rot it out. Yeah. It's not fun.
Oh my gosh.
It's not fun. Oh. I know. On that note, wasn't that fun?
Yeah, that's great. I was like,
who wants to come to the dentist?
Well, I really do appreciate you doing this and sharing. Like it
was so fun.
Good. I'm glad. I know.
I love your podcast, and I love the group.
Thank you.
Because it's great. Everybody's like so like helpful and supportive and terrific. And even when they're snarky, I like it.
Yeah. Somebody
the other day was like, my aunt had pancreatitis, and what kind of diabetes does she have? And like, and then like nobody answers. And and she eats low carb. Like, so like 50 people get on there and they're like, she doesn't need to eat low carb. She just needs to take insulin. And then like, finally one person's like, she's C3. This is from the website, you know?
I'm stunned. Yeah, you get enough people together, you actually get answers to damn near everything. Yeah, right. I went on yesterday.
Fine, I'll Google for you. Yeah. Like, you could have done that. You know? I'll Google it. I'll go on the JDR website for you, and I'll Google it for you. Okay. She kind of carb shamed somebody who was like, no, you don't have to eat low carb. And it wasn't even the person. It was like somebody whose aunt had this, she just had a question.
Jesus.
And then he writes like, fine, do whatever you want. If you want to eat, if you want to just eat sadness all day, like,
My God.
I was like, I personally eat keto just because I am definitely carb sensitive. I have PCOS, which is like, they say that you might get type 2. That's what they want. They like, it's actually too much insulin you're producing. So if you keep producing too much insulin, then I guess eventually your cells are like, too much. And then they shut it down and your absorption goes down.
Okay.
So I don't take anything, but I just try to watch my carb intake. I don't know, keeps me thinner.
Listen, it's not hard for me. It's not hard for me to argue with. I'm 50.
Yeah, right. So. But my keto brownies have definitely been shamed many, many times by my children and everyone else who tries to eat them.
They don't enjoy them.
Except for my Atkins friends. And they're like, these are fantastic. And I was like, yeah, I've tasted them, but I like them.
That's amazing. All right. Well, Allie,
thank you
very much.
So much.
No, I can't thank you enough. Hold on 1 second for me, okay?
Okay.
A huge thanks to Allie for coming on the show today and sharing her story. And thanks to InPen from Medtronic Diabetes for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Learn more and get started today at InPentoday.com. I'd also like to thank Touched by Type 1 and remind you to go to touchedbytype1.org or find them on Facebook and Instagram. Long episode today, so just let me say this. Thank you so much for listening. I'll be back very soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast.